What if I told you that the way someone taps their fingers, avoids eye contact, or even sighs unconsciously could expose their truest feelings before they ever say a word? Carl Jung, the father of analytical psychology, uncovered a hidden truth. Our smallest, most automatic habits are whispers from the unconscious mind, revealing emotions we don't even realize we're feeling. Today, we're diving deep into Jung's groundbreaking insights to crack the code behind these subtle behaviors. By the end of this video, you'll start noticing the secret language of habits, whether in a partner's nervous laugh, a coworker's posture, or even your own restless gestures, and what they really mean. Modern psychology and neuroscience confirm what Jung theorized decades ago. Our unconscious drives shape our actions far more than we think. These microsignals aren't random, they're clues to hidden fears, desires, and conflicts. Learning to read them isn't just about understanding others, it's about uncovering the parts of ourselves we've ignored or buried. Carl Jung's revolutionary work revealed that much of human behavior isn't governed by conscious choice, but by the hidden currents of the unconscious mind. He believed that beneath the surface of our awareness lies a vast psychological landscape, one that shapes our thoughts, emotions, and actions in ways we rarely recognize. While we like to think of ourselves as rational beings making deliberate decisions, Jung argued that we are constantly being influenced by impulses, memories, and desires we've either forgotten or repressed. This is why people often act in ways they can't fully explain, why someone might snap in anger over a minor inconvenience, or feel an inexplicable unease around certain people or situations. These reactions aren't random. They're messages from the unconscious, signaling unresolved conflicts or buried emotions. Small, seemingly insignificant habits often serve as the most direct window into this hidden world. A person who compulsively checks their phone in social settings might not realize their soothing and unconscious fear of rejection. Someone who always crosses their arms when listening could be signaling deep-seated resistance, even if their words sound agreeable. Jung taught us that these behaviors aren't just quirks, they're symbolic expressions of what the conscious mind refuses to confront. The way someone bites their lip when nervous, or absent-mindedly plays with their wedding ring when discussing their marriage, can reveal more about their true emotional state than anything they might say outright. These subtle cues are the unconscious mind's way of leaking truth into the open, bypassing the filters of social politeness or self-deception. Jung also distinguished between two layers of the unconscious, the personal and the collective. The personal unconscious is unique to each individual, shaped by private experiences, forgotten memories, and suppressed emotions. This is where our idiosyncratic habits originate, the specific ways we fidget when anxious or the private rituals we develop to cope with stress. But beyond this lies the collective unconscious, a deeper stratum of the psyche that houses universal patterns of human experience, known as archetypes. These are the primal symbols and instincts shared across cultures, the hero, the shadow, the wise old man, that influence behavior in profound yet often unnoticed ways. For example, someone who constantly seeks to rescue others might be unconsciously acting out the caregiver archetype, while another person's relentless ambition could be driven by the hero archetype buried in their psyche. Understanding this distinction helps explain why certain habits feel almost instinctual, as if they emerge from something older and more universal than personal experience. A child afraid of the dark isn't just reacting to a learned fear, they're tapping into an ancient, collective awareness of danger lurking in the unknown. Similarly, the way people instinctively avoid eye contact when ashamed, or stand taller when feeling confident, reflects archetypal behaviors encoded deep within the human psyche. Jung's genius was in recognizing that these unconscious forces don't just live in the shadows. They actively shape our daily lives, revealing themselves in the smallest gestures, choices, and reactions. By learning to read these signals, We don't just gain insight into others, we begin to decipher the hidden language of our own minds. The little habits that reveal big emotions. 1. Microexpressions and facial tics. The human face is a living map of the unconscious, and nowhere is this more evident than in microexpressions, those split-second flickers of emotion that flash across someone's features before they can compose themselves. Carl Jung called this phenomenon the shadow self, breaking through, the parts of our psyche we suppress or deny momentarily slipping past our carefully constructed masks. A person who claims to be unbothered might reveal their true irritation in the briefest tightening of their lips. Someone insisting they're telling the truth may unconsciously glance to the side, a subtle betrayal of deception rooted in primal avoidance behavior. Even a suppressed smirk during a serious conversation can signal repressed amusement or contempt, exposing what the conscious mind refuses to acknowledge. These involuntary reactions are like cracks in the facade of the persona, offering glimpses into the raw, unfiltered self beneath. Jung believed that by paying attention to these fleeting moments, we gain access to truths that words deliberately obscure. 2. Nervous habits, fidgeting, nail-biting. When stress takes hold, the unconscious often speaks through the body in repetitive, self-soothing gestures. Twisting a ring, bouncing a leg, or chewing a nail to the quick. Jung linked these behaviors to the tension between the anima, the inner feminine, and animus, the inner masculine, the unconscious counterbalances to our conscious identity. A man biting his nails during an emotional conversation might be unconsciously wrestling with suppressed vulnerability, anima, while a woman tapping her foot aggressively in a meeting could be channeling unexpressed assertiveness, animus. These habits aren't just signs of surface-level anxiety, they're physical manifestations of deeper psychological conflicts. The unconscious resorts to these rituals when the conscious mind refuses to confront what's really troubling it, turning the body into a stage where inner battles play out in miniature. 3. Speech patterns and tone shifts. The voice is a direct line to the unconscious, and Jung saw its fluctuations as clashes between the persona, the social mask we wear, and the true self. A confident speaker whose voice suddenly cracks when discussing failure isn't just emotional, they're revealing a vulnerable self they usually keep hidden. Rapid speech might signal anxiety, but Jung would argue it's also the persona scrambling to maintain control, while a deliberate slowdown could indicate someone accessing deeper, more authentic feelings. Even pauses carry meaning. Hesitation before certain words often exposes unconscious resistance. When someone's tone shifts mid-sentence, say, from warm to icy, it's rarely a conscious choice. These vocal tells are the psyche's way of betraying what the persona tries to smooth over, marking the moments when the unconscious elbows its way into the conversation. 4. Repetitive actions, touching hair, tapping feet. Jung was fascinated by the symbolic nature of repetitive behaviors, seeing them as personal rituals with unconscious significance. A woman twirling her hair while flirting isn't just preening. She might be unconsciously signaling nervous attraction, her hands acting out what her words won't say. A man checking his phone obsessively during a lull in conversation isn't merely distracted. He's seeking the modern security blanket for existential unease. Jung called these meaningful coincidences of behavior, where the unconscious assigns purpose to seemingly random motions. The key is in the repetition. The more habitual the action, the more it points to an unresolved need or fear. These rituals often emerge in transitional moments, waiting, thinking, or feeling uncertain, when the unconscious scrambles to regain equilibrium through familiar, if irrational, motions. 5. Eye contact or lack of it. For Jung, the eyes were more than organs of vision. They were portals where the soul both reveals and conceals itself. Prolonged eye contact creates an almost archetypal intimacy, echoing the universal human need for connection and recognition. Yet when someone consistently avoids meeting another's gaze, it's rarely just shyness. It's often the shadow self retreating from exposure, fearing judgment or revealing hidden shame. Conversely, intense staring can signal dominance or a challenge, tapping into primal instincts around confrontation. The unconscious uses the eyes as both weapon and shield, modulating contact to regulate vulnerability. A sudden break in eye contact when discussing certain topics acts like a psychological flinch, betraying discomfort the conscious mind won't admit. In these moments, the eyes become Jung's archetype of the gaze, a silent dialogue between what we dare to show and what we desperately hide. To truly understand people's hidden emotions through their habits, we must first learn to observe like Jung did, with patience and without premature interpretation. This begins with what he called active listening, but extended to all behavior. It means quieting our own assumptions and simply witnessing how someone acts, speaks, and moves in different situations. The key is detachment, noticing a nervous laugh without immediately labeling it as insecurity, or observing frequent phone checking without assuming distraction. Jung emphasized this non-judgmental awareness because our unconscious minds are highly sensitive to scrutiny. When people feel analyzed, they instinctively hide their authentic behaviors. By creating psychological safety through neutral observation, we allow their true patterns to emerge naturally, just as a psychologist might wait patiently for a patient's defenses to lower during analysis. This foundational step requires discipline, as our brains naturally want to categorize and judge immediately, but resisting this impulse reveals far richer insights. The power of observation multiplies when we shift from noticing single instances to detecting recurring patterns. Jung understood that one-off quirks might simply be situational, but repeated behaviors form a symbolic language of the psyche. Someone who bites their nails only before major presentations is showing something different than someone who does it constantly. A person whose voice shakes whenever discussing their childhood, but nowhere else, is pointing us towards specific emotional terrain. This pattern recognition requires time and multiple data points, something modern psychology confirms through the concept of baselining, where we first understand someone's normal behavior before identifying meaningful deviations. Jung would often track patients' habits over weeks or months, noting how certain mannerisms surfaced around particular topics or relationships. This longitudinal approach reveals what sporadic observation cannot: the unconscious's persistent themes and how they manifest physically. Once patterns are established, the deeper interpretive work begins by asking, what part of the self might this habit express? Here we engage with Jung's concept of the shadow, those disowned aspects of personality that leak out behaviorally. A colleague who constantly interrupts others might be compensating for unconscious feelings of inadequacy. A partner who forgets important dates repeatedly could be acting out unacknowledged resentment. This step requires honest imagination, as the connection between behavior and underlying emotion is often symbolic rather than literal. Jung's technique of active imagination can be adapted here, mentally walking alongside the habit, asking what it might represent if it had a voice. The key is to propose multiple possible meanings rather than settling on one definitive interpretation, as the unconscious speaks in metaphors that resist simple translation. Jung's method of amplification becomes crucial here, cross-referencing one habit with other behaviors to confirm or refine our understanding. If we notice someone consistently arriving late, we might look for parallel patterns. Do they also delay decisions? Avoid direct answers to personal questions? These converging behaviors strengthen our interpretation, revealing broader psychological themes. Amplification works vertically too, examining how a single habit manifests differently in various contexts. Someone who jokes nervously in professional settings but becomes quiet at family gatherings is showing us two faces of the same underlying anxiety. This multidimensional analysis prevents the common pitfall of reductionism, where we mistake one aspect of personality for its totality. Jung treated each habit as one thread in a larger tapestry, following it carefully but always keeping the whole picture in view. However, this analytical process demands an important counterbalance: the recognition that context shapes behavior profoundly. Jung cautioned against what he called psychologizing, the tendency to overinterpret every action without considering situational factors. A usually punctual person running late due to transit delays isn't revealing unconscious resistance, no matter how tempting that interpretation might be. The art lies in distinguishing between meaningful patterns and circumstantial exceptions. This requires humility, acknowledging that even the most skilled observers only see part of the picture, and that people's behaviors often have multiple overlapping causes. Jung himself would frequently revise his interpretations as new information emerged, modeling the flexibility needed for accurate psychological insight. The goal isn't to become mind readers, but to develop more nuanced, compassionate understanding of the complex relationship between inner lives and outer expressions. Romantic relationships, friendships, and even family dynamics are filled with unspoken emotions that leak through small behaviors. A partner who consistently forgets to do something they promised might not just be absent-minded, they could be expressing passive resistance or unprocessed frustration. On the other hand, someone who mirrors your posture, leans in when you speak, or finds excuses for light physical contact, like brushing your hand, is likely signaling attraction, even if they haven't admitted it to themselves yet. Jung believed that the shadow, the repressed parts of ourselves, often surfaces in close relationships. A person who gets inexplicably irritated by their partner's confidence might be wrestling with their own buried insecurities. Similarly, passive-aggressive habits, like forgetting plans or giving backhanded compliments, often reveal resentment that hasn't been consciously acknowledged. By paying attention to these micro-behaviors, we can address tensions before they escalate or recognize genuine affection that hasn't yet been put into words. In self-growth, identifying unconscious habits holding you back. Most of us have automatic behaviors that sabotage us without our awareness. Do you procrastinate whenever a project feels too challenging? That might be your unconscious fear of failure taking control. Do you interrupt people mid-conversation? It could signal an unexamined need for validation. Jungian self-analysis starts with observing our own habits with detached curiosity, asking, "What part of me is driving this behavior?" For example, someone who constantly checks their appearance in mirrors might be overly identified with their persona, the social mask they present to the world, while neglecting their deeper self-worth. Another person who avoids conflict at all costs might be suppressing their shadow's assertiveness, leading to built-up frustration. By recognizing these patterns, we can bring them into conscious awareness and work through the underlying emotions rather than letting them dictate our actions. The workplace is a goldmine for unconscious tells, especially in high-stakes environments where people feel pressure to appear composed. A manager who taps their pen impatiently during presentations might secretly disagree but not want to voice objections outright. A coworker who crosses their arms whenever a particular colleague speaks could be signaling distrust or discomfort. Even something as subtle as a forced smile that doesn't reach the eyes can indicate hidden frustration. Jung's concept of the persona is especially relevant here. People often adopt professional masks that conceal their true reactions. But the body rarely lies. A team member who consistently leans back and disengages during brainstorming sessions might be checked out, while someone who subtly nods along while their foot jiggles nervously could be agreeing on the surface but feeling anxious underneath. Learning to spot these cues helps in navigating office politics, giving better feedback, and even negotiating more effectively by sensing when someone's confidence is genuine or feigned. While these techniques offer powerful insights, Jung would caution against using them to psychoanalyze everyone in your life. The goal isn't to become a behavioral detective, scrutinizing every gesture for hidden meaning, but to develop greater emotional intelligence, both for understanding others and yourself. In relationships, this awareness can prevent misunderstandings by helping you sense unspoken issues before they escalate. In personal growth, it allows you to break free from self-sabotaging cycles by recognizing the unconscious drivers behind them. And in professional settings, it provides an edge in communication, helping you respond to what people truly feel, not just what they say. Ultimately, Jung's wisdom reminds us that the smallest habits are often the most honest, because they come from a place beyond conscious control. When we learn to listen to this silent language, we engage with the world and ourselves on a much deeper level. Throughout this exploration of Carl Jung's insights, we've uncovered how the smallest, most automatic behaviors, microexpressions, nervous habits, shifts in speech, repetitive gestures, and eye contact serve as windows into the unconscious mind. These seemingly insignificant actions reveal hidden emotions, unresolved conflicts, and even the shadow aspects of personality we tried to keep concealed. Jung taught us that the unconscious doesn't stay buried. It speaks through the body, often more honestly than words ever could. By paying attention to these subtle cues, we gain a powerful tool for understanding others and ourselves on a deeper level. Whether in relationships, personal growth, or professional interactions, recognizing these patterns allows us to navigate social dynamics with greater awareness, empathy, and insight. But remember, the goal isn't to overanalyze every gesture or assume we can read minds. Instead, it's about cultivating curiosity, noticing recurring signals, and using that knowledge to foster better connections and self-awareness. Now, we'd love to hear from you. Which of these unconscious habits do you notice most in the people around you? Do you have a friend who always fidgets when lying? A coworker whose tone shifts when they're stressed? Or maybe you've caught yourself in a repetitive behavior that made you wonder, why do I keep doing that? Share your observations in the comments below. Let's uncover these hidden patterns together. If you found this dive into Jungian psychology fascinating, don't forget to like and subscribe for more content that decodes human behavior, unconscious motives, and the secrets of the mind. Want to go even deeper? Check out our next video, where we'll explore Jung's dream analysis secrets, what your dreams are really telling you, or if you're curious about romantic dynamics, the body language of attraction, psychological signs someone is into you. Thanks for watching, and remember, the most profound truths often hide in the smallest habits. Stay curious, and we'll see you in the next video.